realizing that it being Valentine's weekend, God is always telling us about love. So the message I'm going to be giving you today is, I'm calling it, Love is a Many Splendored Thing. Some of you may actually know the song, even have seen the movie. I know my wife hasn't. I think it's from 1952 with William Holden, but that's a different story. I'm going to open up by reading John chapter 21. It's going to be verses 15 through 18. You can put it up in the ESV, that way you can follow along. I'll let Roel pull that up real quick. One of the many questions that Jesus asks. And it says, when they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, feed my lambs. He said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, tend my sheep. And he said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Peter was grieved, because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. I was thinking of this passage because of an author by the name of Margaret Atwood, secular author. She's well known for writing a book called The Handmaid's Tale. She has a quote in one of her previous books. It's always stood out to me because it says, the Eskimos have 52 names for snow because it was important to them. There ought to be as many for love. In other words, the complexity of that emotion, love, is too simplistic a term. We say it for so many things, but it's diverse in spectrum, covering affection, passion, companionship. I can't remember who told me, but they said that it was funny to them that the Western world was conquered and expanded by people with an inferior language, English. And, I didn't really know what to think about that. But in a little history lesson, I found out that English was considered vulgar. In other words, it was a common tongue. It was that for peasants. From 1066 until about 1362, French was actually the language of English courts. And that was after the Normans took over. But being a prestige language, French also originated from Latin. Latin is still used, well, not as much in the Catholic Church because of Vatican II, but it is well known because you can find it in the roots of a lot of words. But Latin is now a dead language. There's no country or people that commonly speak it. In fact, for that matter, the last pope who spoke it was, what was his name? Ratzenberger, I believe. That was his name before he became the pope. But you can find Greek and Latin in the prefix and suffixes of words. You can find in pronouns that they originate from German. So English is very much a language that comes piecemeal. It takes other bits from French, Latin, Greek, and it makes it its own. But back to love. We have love and say love for just about everything, not differentiating in terms. I can say, I love my wife, I love my son, I love my mom and dad, and I can also say, I love hot dogs. It's not the same thing. In the Greek, they differentiated, and love had different meanings depending on how it was used. The term that you may be familiar with the most is agape. Now, I first heard of that because of a children's radio series called Adventures in Odyssey. That was put out by Focus on the Family. They did a really good job of promoting biblical ideas in a way that makes it easy for children to understand. And you really need that. There are very few programs that still can teach children, positive moral values. This was even before my time, but I actually have all of the Davy and Goliath on DVD. I love those little programs. But, kids are impressionable. It's important for them to learn these things. There was a lot of shows that I was not allowed to watch as a child because my mom was afraid of it being a bad influence. For one, I could never watch The Incredible Hulk, the one with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. And my mom's reasoning for that was the Hulk had a bad attitude. And I understand it because children are impressionable. They want to start picking up. I remember actually when I was working at Target, when that first movie came out, this mom came in asking for Hulk toys. And she asked the cashier if they had any Hulk toys. And she said, "What's Hulk?" And this little boy said, "I am." Ah! And it cracked me up. But, they pick those little things and they run with it. So for children to learn something like love, like agape from a radio program, it's a wonderful thing. Now, agape, that comes from the Greek, all right? It is a self-giving, sacrificial love. It is unconditional. And agape is actually the word used most often in the New Testament for God's love. When we read John 3:16, it says, "For God so loved the world." And when he says loved in that term, they use the term agapesen. Okay? Another version of love is known as philia. That's affectionate, a friendship kind of love. It's brotherly. The city of Philadelphia, that is the city of brotherly love. Ro, if you wouldn't mind pulling up John 15:13. It says, "Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends." Love in this term is philon. Philon is used for friends. It's also where Philemon gets his name. His name means loving or affectionate friend. Another term you'll find in the Greek is that of eros. Now, eros is a romantic or sexual love. It's equated with desire. It's also where the word erotic comes from. But strange enough, this word is not found in the Old or New Testament. But the word storge is. And what storge is a familial or a love of family. It's the love you'll find between parents and their children. In Romans 12:10, you'll see this term for love. It says, "Love one another with brotherly affection." Interesting enough, when it says brotherly affection, it's actually a compound word because it's taking philo from the friend and storge. So it's philostorgos. In John 21, Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me?" And he asked Peter using agapao. And Peter replies, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And he does so using the word phileo. In other words, Jesus is asking for a sacrificial love, and Peter responds with friendship. Now, I want you to know that there is some debate to what I've just told you. The distinction in word translation, as John can use them interchangeably. But what matters is this: the love that Jesus shows to Peter is not sentimental. It is restorative. Peter, before he met Jesus again there on the beach, had denied Christ 3 times. And here, Jesus gives him the chance to answer again. And 3 times he answers him in the affirmative. Now, I could ask you the same question. Do you love Jesus? And I don't doubt that any of you would say no. You would all say yes. But more specifically, how so? How do you love him? There is another word that we often associate with love, and that is passion. Again, we think of, a romantic affection, something that people are enthusiastic about, a great devotion. We say they're passionate about that. They follow it, But passion had a different meaning. It originates from the Latin, the word passio. It means suffering. And in saying that, if you've seen the film The Passion of the Christ, you will understand that what it really means is the suffering of the Christ. Passion is something that happens to you. It's not something you can control. Passion causes you to suffer because it overwhelms you. It caused Jesus in his humanity to be vulnerable. And because he loved his Father and desired to fulfill his will, he suffered for it. Passion is the cost of love. And for that matter, it is the greatest expression of love. People will think of love stories, fictional or in real life. They may think of one like Romeo and Juliet. They may think of the real-life story of Edward VII and, what's her name? Wallis Simpson. Edward VII was supposed to be king of England, and yet he renounced his throne and title as sovereign of the British Empire so that he could marry a woman who was twice divorced. At the time, that was a scandal. He gave up all responsibility for love. And although there's many wonderful love stories, the greatest love story in the world is that of suffering. When Jesus allowed himself to be arrested and scourged to the point where you can find in Isaiah 52:14. This is when he was beaten. It says, his appearance was so marred, so beyond human semblance, and his form beyond that of the children of mankind, that it also fulfilled another prophecy, that found in Psalm 129, verse 3. Give him a chance to pull that up as well. Let's see. A lot of Psalms. Yes, there are. It says, the plowers plowed upon my back. They made long their furrows. Ultimately, this ended in the crucifixion and death of Jesus. So it's like, what is love? Romans 5:8 says, but God shows us his love, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So here, love was demonstrated to us through suffering, and love was proven through sacrifice. Well, I wanted you to see another example of love. You can go to 1 Corinthians 13:4. It says, love is patient and kind. Love it does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant. You can say, love is patient. Patience is suffering. Love is kind. Kindness, when wronged, is suffering. It's on a couple verses later, but it says, love keeps no record of wrongs. Choosing to overlook an offense while still feeling the sting of it, that's suffering. Love is choosing to endure for the good of another. Now, in the King James Version of 1 Corinthians 13:4, it uses a different word. Charity. Now, what does charity have to do with love? I think of charity, I think of benevolence, I think of donations to the poor. But back in 1611, charity had a different meaning. Its translation came from the Latin word caritas, which was a costly, self-giving love. This is what was chosen to translate agape. Supposedly it's translated by Jerome, who's the patron saint of librarians. So there's a little trivial information for you. But it says, charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. Charity is not giving something away. Charity is giving yourself away. No. Paul is not describing an emotion. He is telling us how to live, how to relate to people, how to endure wrong, how to choose the good of another even when it costs you. In doing so, it reminds me of what Paul wrote to the Romans in 13:10. It says that love does no wrong to a neighbor, and therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. So in everything God has commanded, in everything written in the law, its completion is found in love. No. You can look at the 10 Commandments. We do not murder because love values life. We do not steal because love respects what belongs to another. And we do not lie because love honors the truth. The law is crafted by love, and love gives life to the law. Now, perhaps it is possible to keep rules without love. I doubt it, but I know it is not possible to love rightly without fulfilling the heart of the law. Because love has a structure, it has a moral weight, and it has a cost. And nowhere is this more evident than the life of Jesus and his death at the cross. You know, I said it at the beginning. Love is a many-splendored thing. You know, it is so powerful and multifaceted. It's paradoxal in that it is simple and yet it's complex. Two things that shouldn't be able to exist together, but it does. The word is rich in meaning, to the point that instead of trying to define all forms like the Greeks or how the Eskimos have multiple words for snow, we sum it up in an all-encompassing word: love. And love has many sides, depending on the moment and how the people are involved. I said it before in Romans 5:8, but God shows his love for us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I'm going to start to wrap it up here, unfortunately. I can only write so much, and unfortunately I speak fast, so I apologize. But at the cross, justice was ignored because an innocent man was condemned, but not the divine justice of God. It was satisfied in him. And Jesus did not set aside righteousness. He did not abolish the law. He fulfilled it. Every commandment, every requirement, and every consequence of sin. It was fulfilled by his love. And that is why the suffering of the Christ is called the Passion. Because love in its highest form is sacrificial. It is willing to suffer for the good of another. Jesus didn't go to the cross because it felt good. He went to the cross because it was good for us. John 15:13. It says, "Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends." God is love. And love chose the nails. Love chose the cross. Love chose to sacrifice himself. Love fulfilled the law. I want you to think of that question Jesus asked Peter, because he's asked it of us as well. Do you love me? He asks not of an emotional feeling, but of action. If you were to go to John 1:1, you can pull it up in English. It says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was with God." Something my father pointed out to me is in Spanish, it says, "Verbo era Dios." So the verb, an action. Because love is an action. Love is a verb. Love is proven by faithfulness over time, by patience when it is hard, by kindness when it is undeserved, by forgiveness when the wounds still hurt, and by endurance when the emotional feelings fade away. That is Christ-like love. Now, I've spoken a lot about agape, a sacrificial love. But feelings, affection, romance, they're wonderful things. They are a gift, but they are not the gift. And they are not the foundation of love, because true love is sacrificial. It is enduring. God is love. And that love says, I am here. I remain. I choose you even when it costs me something. That is the love God has shown us, and he will continue to show us, so that in turn we can love one another. That is all I have for today. But I just want you to go out this week, think about that. Think about the love Christ has shown us, that great mercy. Greater love, no one has this, that he would lay down his life for his friends. I'm glad to know that kind of love. I have the love of my parents, but to have the love of God is so much greater. I just pray we can all show that to others. So I'm going to have Roger, please pray us out.